They are the people. They're now saying we have to take our freedoms away to stop them harming us. The people they trained, not just in Pakistan, but also in America. I'll say no more except this, about this. Or I might, because got verbal diarrhea, but if anyone thinks, David Davis or anybody else, that when this guy David Cameron, the Conservative leader, comes into government, as we stand, he absolutely is almost certain to do. If David Davis or anyone thinks that Big Brother is going to be turned back by this guy and his cohorts, then again, you know, just down the road from the one in the seafront property in Switzerland, I have another little one you might like to look at. Because the agenda does not take no for an answer. You always know when it's the agenda, because when it's rejected by the people, they keep coming back with it. And this whole global Big Brother agenda is not going to go any further in Britain, or is going to be turned back by David Cameron. Crikey, you're having a laugh. Of course not. They'll find the excuses for it, and it'll be business as bloody usual. This is very true, I find. Politics may not be the oldest profession, but the results are the same. Now, people don't realise just how simple it is for these shadow groups, a group in the end, to manipulate who goes into government in a democracy. Piece of cake. This is how it's done. You might recognise this if you've followed politics in Britain for the last 20 or 30 years. Most countries have one or two parties, sometimes one, South Africa, but mostly two parties that have any chance of forming a government. All you have to do to get the party in, i.e., because it's not a party thing, they're just vehicles, in other words, the leadership in that you want, is to cause mayhem in the party you don't want. And then people say, well, I don't really want to vote for these people, but look, what's the alternative? Go and vote for them. Oh, they're in. During the Thatcher era, there was lots of people who didn't want to vote for Margaret Thatcher. But look at the Labour Party. It was in disarray, it was internal conflict. Leaders came to power who you wouldn't let run a fish and chip shop. And people were saying, oh, I don't want Margaret Thatcher, but look at the alternative. So, the Conservatives were in right the way through the 80s when she introduced Thatcherism, which was a mirror of the economics called Reaganomics that was being introduced at the same time in America. Just a coincidence, nothing to worry about. Then, the chosen one appeared through the ether. Tony Blair, after John Major had become Prime Minister. The moment chosen one Blair came to lead the Labour Party, Murdoch's newspapers in this country switched to the Labour Party and Blair for the first time. And what happened to the Conservative Party? Internal conflict, mayhem, leaders that people didn't find credible, and leaders who the public were told not to find credible. What happened? 10 years of Blair. Despite lying blatantly, outrageously, grotesquely about going into Iraq. And despite all that, he got in, what, 3 times? Why were people saying, well, I don't like Blair, but look at the alternative? And now Gordon Brown's come in to replace Blair without a vote. Blair stepped down. What's happening to Brown now? A systematic demolition of him and his party is happening. Why? Because Cameron is designed to come in with his cohorts to take the Big Brother state on a bit further. Sorry, David Davis, you're going to have to live with it. Unless we decide we're not going to live with it, because the power is with us, not them, if we only took it. So the world seems very confusing. Let's see how they do it here. The world seems very confusing, a ball of confusion and what's going on. And the reason it seems like that is because we're denied, not least through the Quentin Letts of this world, we are denied the coordinates necessary to understand how the pieces fit. The coordinates are about where they want to take the world and the methods they use to take us there. Once we've got these coordinates, the world looks very different. This election looks very different. Coordinate 1. The goal is a centrally controlled global fascist dictatorship. This image can be found in this book, the first edition of which I wrote in 1994. Look at the world as it's emerged since in relation to that. Why do they want this structure? Any dictatorship must centralize power and must bring the decision-making process into the hands of fewer and fewer people. Because the more diversity of decision-making you have, the less control a centre is going to have over those decisions. Diversity is the worst nightmare of the dictator. Uniformity is the means through which they do it. I mean, just look at the world from a built environment perspective. No matter where you go in the world, it all looks the same. This uniformity is emerging, even on that level. So what they want is a world government which would dictate all major policies to every country. They want a world central bank that would control the whole of global finance for every country. They want a world currency which would not in the end be physical cash, but electronic money only. And there are fundamental implications for freedom in that. We are hurtling towards the cashless society. Oh, it's a good thing. Yes. If it was done benignly, it might be, but it ain't. It's the outcome and the reason for the outcome we need to focus on, not the actual thing itself necessarily so much. Today, if you go into a shop or whatever, and you hand over electronic money, a credit card, and they say, sorry, the computer won't accept your card, at least you can still say, oh, well, I'll pay cash then. What happens when there is no cash and that computer says, no way, Jose? You have no means of purchase. What does that mean? Total control. That's why it's there. They want a world army. And what I'm saying is all in these books from 15, nearly 20 years ago. A world army that would impose the will of the world government. I had a journalist said to me once, what would they want a world army for? There'd be no one to fight.